Hey all you GBA type people, welcome back to Pivotal Moments, the weekly show where we take you on the inside of the GBA D-League Season 2 matches, unwrap them, and talk about what moments in the matches made or broke the game for one player or another. I, of course, am Blue from KantoCast, and I am actually joined by a very special person this week.
Hey, what's happening, Tug Peeps? Oldmantup back in action.
Tup is back. So glad you're feeling better, Tup.
Hey, it's great to be back.
Not that Berkeley wasn't an excellent fill-in. He was. We love Burke. We miss him.
He did. He definitely towed the line for me.
But the boys are back now, and here we are bringing Week 7 straight at your faces and or ears. So, to go ahead and kick things off, we will start with the Arcaniners versus the Shelmets.
Yeah, the Arcaniners versus the Shelmets. This was a very marquee matchup and was supposed to be the match that is going to make or break that division. And the lineups that they brought, the Arcaniners had Landorus, Hitmonlee, Megacizor, Uxie, Arcanine, and Zapdos. And the Shelmets brought with them Fortress, Garchomp, Tornadus, Mega Ampharos, Manaphy, and Weavile. And I'm going to preface this with this match ended in a DC, and the competitors agreed to what a fair outcome would have been. And at the DC, Hitmonlee was in with an Unburden boost, Adamant, full attack, and both competitors agreed at that point that Hitmonlee would have cleaned up and got a 4-0 victory for the Arcaniners. Now, in my opinion, the pivotal moment in this match was actually the second that Hitmonlee hit the field. There was a switch out. Hitmonlee went for a normal gem boosted fake out, which after that gave it the Unburden boost. So it outsped, I believe, everything on the field outside of Scarf's Pokemon, which I don't think that Gassy brought. So he had the fastest thing on the field that hit like a truck and had moves for everything coming in, and it just started cleaning up. Ended up with a agreed upon 4 kills, and it just wiped the floor with the Shelmets.
Yeah, it was it was definitely an anticlimactic end, I think, to the match. It was pretty wrapped up, I think, for the most part. There's always uncertainty, with matches when they end in a DC, or even when a DC happens and you kind of got to recreate and stuff like that. It's all messy, let's be honest. But the agreed upon 4-0, I guess, is what it is. It's a disappointing end in a pretty good matchup, I would think. But, them's the breaks, I suppose. There was another mystery that I'm curious about, and that was the Arcaniners' Arcanine spread. And as an Arcanine lover and user myself, I am curious. I want to know, but I don't think we ever will.
I think the only way we'll find that out is if George, Sceptile MC, brings it in a future match and references back to this battle, saying that it was a similar set. But I don't see that happening, George being as fierce a competitor as he is. So I think we may be up the creek on that one.
That's unfortunate. But you know what? EV spreads are a very delicate thing. You got to keep those close to the vest.
Yep.
But hey, it is what it is. So, second match this week, we have the Bills going up against the Dolphinians. The Bills brought Dusclops, Umbreon, Excadrill, Azelf, Crobat, and Exploud. The Dolphinians had Latios, Rotom Wash, Vileplume, Dragonite, Porygon 2, and the ever-popular Butterfree. Butterfree made another appearance in this game. And just to rip the Band-Aid off quick, the Bills won 3-0 over the Dolphinians. I'm not surprised, I will say. And it's not because necessarily the Dolphinians typically have whether it's bad luck or misplays or anything like that. Will of the Buffalon Bills is just so calculated with every move he makes. And, if I had to pick a pivotal moment for this particular match, that would, I guess, be Exploud getting off a Boom Burst onto the Porygon 2, which, did enough damage to the point where a Brave Bird would come in and take stuff out from Crobat. And that's classic Will. That's kind of just what he does. He gets everything down to a point where he knows that he can just come in and, take care of the rest of the team with one of the mons on his team, whether it's like Excadrill or Crobat or Azelf or something like that. It's classic Will.
Yeah, Will's use of Crobat this season of the GBA D-League has just been fantastic, and it's been one of his keystone team members. The pivotal moment I actually had picked out for this was when Hardy switched in Rotom Wash, switched out Porygon 2, brought Rotom Wash in Onyx Cloud to suck up a Boom Burst, which it almost got one shot. I think it survived with like 8% health or something like that, but that was Hardy's only answer to Crobat and a Brave Bird at that point. And when that got hit and just got taken down so far, it was just like, what are you gonna do now? And I think that was, followed up by your Boom Burst on the Porygon 2, and it was just downhill from there. But I will say that Hardy gave Will a really good show this week.
That's true. Yeah, unfortunately, the Stealth Rocks were just too much for dear old Butterfree right towards the beginning of the match. Butterfree didn't hang around too long, which I was bummed about. I really wanted that thing to, like, do something fancy, at least one point.
Yeah. So yeah, it did. It actually put something to sleep this week, which was great. It got the Quiver Dance up, but unfortunately, Will was very well prepared for that with Excadrill and just switched right in, and it was no use for the Butterfree at that point.
I believe he even called the Butterfree lead.
Yeah, and I think his appropriate start to that was Focus Sashed Azelf.
Yeah. And
I think he went for knockoff turn 1 to make sure that Butterfree, if it was having a sash, which I believe it did, would be broken. So even if Azelf was put to sleep, he could bring in Excadrill and just finish the job. But enough of that match. Let's move on to the Accrington Stantlers and the Seattle Star Raptors. 8-Bit Insomniac, aka Ellie, and Gearheart G-Heart, however you love to call him. And this was another really important division matchup that could affect the outcome of the playoffs. And with this match, the Stantlers brought Infernape, Vaporeon, Heliolisk, Regirock, Scizor, and Latias. And the Star Raptors had Salamence, Megalophony, Yanmega, Registeel, Victini, and Clefable. And this match ended up in a 3-0 in the Stantlers' favor. And I'm going to say that the pivotal moment to me in this match was relatively early, maybe a quarter of the way into the match. And Latias and Clefable were both out on the field. And Ellie, who had Latias, called the bluff and stayed in on Clefable expecting the flamethrower, took it well, and just destroyed Clefable's face with a, I believe, Psyshock. And at that moment, that just took away almost anything Gearheart had going for it to slow down the offensive prowess of Latias. And I think he was on his heels from that point on. He was making counter switches and counter moves the whole time, and he never really made much headway from that point that really swung the momentum back in his favor.
I agree. That was kind of the make it or break it moment, and I believe Ellie even said that even had Clefable gone for a Moonblast, Latias would have taken it. It would have been a lot lower in health, granted, but you know, Latias is pretty bulky. An interesting point in the match that I will highlight just because I don't really have a whole lot else to comment about this particular one. Victini got a crit onto Regirock, which set off its weakness policy, but then Regirock's health was too low to really like go in and do a whole lot of work, so that was kind of disappointing. We didn't get to see a little mini Reggie sweep, but still a cool moment in the match, if nothing else. But also interesting, Heliolisk did not hit the field this week. But we will move on to the fourth game of Week 7. And of course, we all know that leaves the Gastros up against the Blaziken. The Gastros had Darmanitan, Mew, Nidoqueen, Suicune, Spiritomb, and Togekiss. The Blaziken brought Alakazam, Gastrodon, Skarmory, Mega Venusaur, Lucario, and Mamoswine. So, another classic Mike match. The Blaziken did end up winning 1-0, but it was by 1%, which came down to a Focus Sash live. So, you know, in true Mike fashion, there you go, a 1-0 at 1%. I think third time it's happened this season, or something crazy like that. But In terms of I guess the pivotal moment of this match, Spiritomb was firing off a lot of foul plays. Mike was very surprised at how much the foul play was doing. After a couple, Nick ends up switching in Lucario, which has justified, into a foul play from the Spiritomb. He gets the boost, and then Nick actually predicts the Mew switch and goes for Crunch and just outright destroys Mew. And that was just kind of the beginning of the slide downward. There was some back and forth, and there were a couple interesting moments. We got to see Zen mode Darmanitan. That was a thing. Suicune went down by turn 4. That was unfortunate. Mega Venusaur didn't get to do a whole lot either. I just want to make that point. That was upsetting. A Power Whip missed on Spiritomb, I think, at one point. There was a lot of back and forth, but I feel like the Crunch predict onto the Mew was pretty clutch.
Yeah, I agree. That series of events was definitely the most important part of the match, and it really swung the momentum in the Blaziken's favor. Lucario got that boost, and an extreme speeding Lucario with the boost and Crunch and what I'm going to assume was a fighting move just destroys a lot. And he really didn't have much to counter at that point. It was just really hard to watch at that point. And this match was a 1-0, and I don't want to take anything away from Mike's performance this match, but the match was not as close as it sounds. There was a fistful of misses, a fistful of crits, and almost everything went against the Blazikens hacks-wise. Mike played good and Mike played fun, but I don't feel this was one of his smarter performances. Him letting Suicune get two-shot by a Mamoswine right off the bat. I mean, that removed what he had said was his answer to Gastrodon right in the beginning. I mean, Skarmory fell right away. This was a frustrating match for me to watch because it just seemed like they were throwing Mons away until that pivotal moment hit, where it was kind of the stalemate between Gastrodon and Spiritomb. Then that one play was made, and then the match pretty much just went downhill. And after Lucario got knocked out, Mamoswine pretty much just ran shop on the rest of the team until it was taken down.
Yeah, everybody was playing pretty fast and loose in this particular game, I think. But
yeah, and I don't want to say that they shouldn't have been, but this was another match that this could have decided who was taking the wild card spot going into the playoffs. And all the matches this week have an impact on the playoffs. I don't want to say they didn't take it seriously, because I believe they did, and I believe they played to the best of their ability. I just think maybe they didn't play as safe as they should have, with as much on the line as was.
Yeah, I think that's a fair critique. Perhaps a bit more calculation on some of the players' parts might be, a valid critique. Aside from maybe Will and Ellie, who are always kind of at the top of their game when it comes to, planning things out. I don't really think I've seen them falter terribly, or if at all, even this season. But that's going to wrap it up for Week 7. There it is. It is done and it's over, and playoffs are coming soon, guys. We asked you last week, I think, who you want to see in the playoffs. We're still curious, so put them in the comments below. Also, if we missed any pivotal moments this week, feel free to share those in the comments down below as well. But, as always, I am KantoCastBlue.
I'm Oldmantup. Thanks for watching Pivotal Moments, and we will catch you next week for the final week of the GBA D-League. Catch you on the flip side, guys. Peace.